What's up YouTube? So today we'll take a look at the different eras in the soccer card market. Most of the time we tend to split the eras in three. I'm talking about vintage, pre-modern and modern, but I actually believe things are a bit more complex than that, and that will be the topic for today's video. But before I go into that, let me ask you for one thing right away. If you can leave a like, thank you so much. It's still the best way to show support. I put a lot of hours into this community. I think a like is more than fair if you enjoy the content. And if you enjoy the content, also consider to subscribe the channel. Now two more things, but I will be quite fast on those. I have a Patreon community that you have to pay $10 to join, but if you do that, you have access to more than 100 exclusive videos. I think there is a lot of value there, especially if you like this channel. You probably will love the content on Patreon. The second thing is totally free, is my Discord server. We are more than 1,000 members, and that community is growing super fast. The link will also be below the video with the Patreon link, so consider to join both, but at least join the Discord because it's totally free. Now let's move on into the topic, and I hope you have fun. Question number one goes this way. Can you please explain the difference among vintage, pre-modern and modern cards and the years for each? Of course I can. I think this is actually a great question. It's always important to put in perspective the timeline for different eras. But let me say one thing, this is also a relative topic. At the end of the day, there is no rule for us to follow. This should be this and this should be that. That said, let's try to put this question in a very basic perspective. Most people tend to divide the market in three different eras. I'm talking about vintage, I'm talking about pre-modern, and I'm talking about modern. I love all eras. I love pre-modern a bit more since I actually remember most of the players and I have a huge connection with, especially I have more nostalgia for that era. Talking about vintage, there is some debate around this. Some people believe goes until the 79, other people believe goes until the 89, but should be around that time. Pre-modern goes from the 80s to 2013, and modern goes from 2014 until today. This is a very basic perspective. Now let's try to be a bit more complex. I think this is a much better way to look at the soccer card market. You have pre-war, goes until 35, basically the end of the Second World War. After that you have vintage, starting on 36 until 79 or 89, it's about perspective. And you also have pre-modern that goes from the 80s until 2014. If you go by this logic, and I thought this was actually quite amazing, the vintage era and the pre-modern era both have 33 years. And I thought that was... both have 33 years inside of the era. And I thought that was quite fascinating and probably made me even believe more in this separation of the vintage and pre-modern. Modern goes from 2014 until 2017, and recently, this is still a new concept around the market, we talk about ultra-modern, and ultra-modern goes from 2018 until today. Now you can ask me, okay Andre, but why modern goes from 2014 until 2017? The question is actually quite simple. Basically, 2014 was when the Prism ended up getting introduced to our market, and the Prism 2014 is still today a very iconic set, but it's just not because of the power of the brand in Panini, in Prism. It's also because it was the first mainstream American set to hit the market in a very big way. That's why when we talk about lineage, when we talk about very important sets for the soccer card market, 99% of the people tend to agree that the Prism 2014 is probably, if not the most important, top 2, top 3 set in the market. Goes until 2017 because that was when Topps Chrome ended up appearing. Topps Chrome 2017, another set that people also tend to agree is one of the best sets ever made. And right now, if you ask, say, almost everyone that understands the modern market. Not talking about high-end, to be honest, but Prism and Topps Chrome are the two most important brands. After 2017, Topps Chrome started actually introducing a lot of new product. Topps Finest, in 2020, Merlin, Stadium. So basically, Topps Chrome products, but with almost different sub-brands. There was an explosion in terms of modern product. If you actually look at the amount of sets that ended up entering the market from 2014 until 2017 for modern, not a lot. You have the relevant ones, Prism, Topps Chrome, Flawless, maybe a couple of others that I'm actually missing that are also relevant, but not a lot of stuff. After that, forget about, and is getting worse by day. That's why ultramodern grows from 2018 until today. Not that I think 2018 or after that it's just non-investable. I think most of the stuff may not be investable, but there is great sets. I think Eminence is a great product. I think even the first years for Merlin could be nice. I like some parallels on Obsidian, but in general there is this separation. Now I will share with you my way at looking at the market, but I don't think is the correct way to be totally transparent. It's just the way I approach the market. After all, there are no official rules to this type of stuff. This is my view. Instead of focusing on dates, on this year to that year, I focus more on players or sets that end up changing an era or end up changing the market. This relates more with sets, of course. So, pre-war, even though the name is quite evident what it means, but I look at that market like everything before Pelé. Of course, if you want to go by dates, that's also fine. That's my way of approaching that market. Vintage starts with Pelé. Why? Pelé actually was the first big superstar in the world of soccer. Di Stefano was very popular, Puskás was very popular, but Pelé ended up bringing soccer to a different level, a global stats type of sport. And I tend to connect vintage with Pelé. He's probably also the most important player, not probably, he's 100% the most important player we have in the vintage market, and 58 is when a lot of stuff starts gaining attention, even in the vintage market. Pre-modern starts with Zinedine Zidane. And why Zinedine Zidane and not, for example, Van Basten, and not, for example, I don't know, you can put other relevant player. I think Zinedine Zidane makes sense. First of all, he's GOAT level type of player in pre-modern, even though I understand he's not competing with Pelé or Lionel Messi, but he's still a very, very important player. And I think the sticker is so iconic. The player was so important, and is one of the oldest releases we have in pre-modern if you go starting with the 90s and I tend to agree with that. So for me, pre-modern starts with the sticker of Zinedine Zidane. I also don't stay very attached to this type of logic. If there is something a little bit older that I still think should be part of pre-modern, that will be fine. But those are more or less the way I tend to look at vintage and pre-modern. Modern, this I agree. I mean, there is not a lot of debate about this, I would say. It starts with Prism 2014, the first big American set. And ultramodern, I look at everything after Topps Chrome 2017, like in a couple of minutes ago I was explaining. Basically, Chrome started putting different sub-brands, different sets, and even Prism started entering and gaining licenses in different regions to do different products. So that's my way of looking at the market. I don't think it's the correct way. It's just my way. I would love to know the way you guys approach the market. If you go basically by, instead of data, more about players that end up changing one era, or players that you associate with one era, or by sets. Or if you go this way, a very strict way almost, that you actually go by dates. Okay, pre-war is from this to this, vintage is from this to this. At the end of the day, I think this can generate some critical thinking and a fun debate. Let's go to the question number 2. Question number 2 goes this way. Hi, Andre. Have your thoughts about the advantage demographics of pre-modern evolved at all over the past year or so? My sense is that vintage has lower supply overall, but I also believe that the demand for pre-modern will continue to be greater because of the age of collectors and nostalgia. Would love to know your thoughts.